Good morning and welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make these delicious homemade wagon wheels from our new book. Right, homemade wagon wheels. For me, wagon wheels are just my childhood. I remember having them, you would sort of nibble them, twist them, try and get into the marshmallow, all that sort of good stuff. And I thought, you know what? It has to go in the book because everybody loves a wagon wheel. So let's start them off with the biscuit, okay? So you need 250 grams of room temperature butter. And it's important that it's at room temp because we need to incorporate it. It's also important that you use butter because this biscuit recipe needs to firm up before we slice them into biscuits. And if you use a margarine, it just will not firm up enough, okay? So 250 grams of salted butter, and then I've got 125 grams of golden caster sugar, okay? So we pop that in. And then we're just going to mix these two together and cream it, okay? Now, I've broken my electric mixer this weekend, so I'm going to do it by hand, which I'm hating. I'm not enjoying this at all. Now, once all the sugar and the butter have dissolved together and become one texture, that's when it's ready, okay? So keep mixing. You don't want to hear any sort of scratchy sounds. And then in with an egg yolk. And this is where my shortbread recipe kind of leaves Scotland and goes to France. Because the French will always add an egg yolk for a sablé shortbread, whereas the Scottish don't add egg yolks. Okay, so separate your egg and then straight in with the yolk. This is my basic shortbread recipe that I use for loads of stuff. In the recipe book, we've got Demerara Shorties, which is a lovely vanilla shortbread. And then we brush with egg white and then we wrap Demerara sugar around the outside. It is simple but delicious. Now in with your egg yolk and then in with our plain flour, okay? All in, and then we can just start to mix this together. Now, if you've got any questions at all, post them in the comments below. I will answer them as quickly as I can. And obviously, if you like the book, you fancy getting your hands on it, you can order it from petersidwell.com. We do signed, personalized copies, and we ship them straight to you. If you're overseas in America, you can buy the book at amazon.com if you want. So there's loads of places you can get it. And if it's not in your local bookstore, ask for it and get them to stock it for you. Right, so we're just going to work this together. I'm going to transfer it on to the worktop in just a second, but I'm just going to get the first little bit of mixing done first. In fact, I'm getting impatient. I'm going in with my hands. So in with your hands and just almost as if you're kind of making a crumble topping. Just use your fingertips, brush it all together, just rub it together until it becomes like a crumble. Do you see that? So it just crumbles through your hands. It's almost ready. What you don't want to do with shortbread is just overwork it and overwork it because it'll become too tough. What we're going to do now is we're going to compress the dough. So rather than roll it and knead it and work it, which is what we would normally do with bread, we're just going to crush it and squeeze it together. So the warmth of my hands is going to help bring this dough together. So the less you work it, the more sort of short and buttery your shortbread will be. That's it, nearly there. So you've got to be patient with this recipe as well, because what we're going to have to do now is roll this into like a log, and then we're going to pop it in the fridge, and we're going to set it. Overnight is good. A couple of hours is essential, okay? So it depends on, what time you've got. But this will also freeze, this dough. You could get ahead, if you were doing this maybe for I don't know, for Christmas or something like that. You wanted to do lovely little Christmassy wagon wheels. You could get this bit done now, ready for later on in December. So you can see I've just sort of rolled it into that lovely kind of log shape. Pop that in the fridge at least a couple of hours, if not overnight. Okay, right. This one has sat in the fridge and it's chilled and firmed up. I mean, yeah, that's how set you want it. Because what we're going to do is we're going to slice it into discs. But because we're going to sandwich two together with marshmallow and jam, yes, marshmallow, jam, shortbread, and then chocolate. What more do you want? They need to be thin, otherwise they're going to be a little bit too much to take. So, all I'm going to do, sharp knife, and I'm going to cut them. Can you see how thin I've cut those, Carlos? Yeah? They're like, I don't know what, less than ½ centimetre if you can. And then I'm just going to transfer them onto a non-stick. This is a silpat mat, they call it. It's like a silicone baking mat. Nothing, I repeat, nothing will stick to one of these, okay? So I'm just going to slice them and I'm going to take my time. Do you have wagon wheels in Spain, Carlos?
No, we don't.
Do you not? Oh, you poor thing.
Maybe I love them.
I think you need to export them back to the homeland. They'd go well, wouldn't they? Does Olivia like them, does she?
She loves them.
We better send one home for her, haven't we? Right. So what I've done here is I've cut 12 on one tray. Obviously, it's important that you do an even amount because we're going to sandwich them all together. These are going to bake at 160 degrees and they will not take long, okay? So just bake them, leave them to cool, and then we'll get to the next stage. Okay, let's recap. Now, I've got my shortbreads made here ready to assemble my wagon wheels. Now, they are fully cooled, which is really important. So once they've baked, leave them to completely cool because when they're warm, they're still quite delicate. But once they've cooled, pop them onto a cooling rack. And what I've done is I've sat the cooling rack on top of a baking tray with a bit of parchment paper, and you'll see why in a minute. So if I just get these first few on there ready, I'll move these to one side. Got some more there as well. So the challenge now is to get the marshmallows in the middle and the jam. Now, I've got some lovely, my favourite at the moment is Wild and Fruitful's raspberry jam. It's delicious. It just tastes of raspberries, and that's what you want from a jam, isn't it? So we've got that ready, okay? Right, I've got my marshmallows here. If you just have a look at these, Carlos, marshmallows and a little bit of water on a super low heat. So I use induction. I work with AEG, so I always use induction. And I've got it on like number 3, and all I'm doing is melting the water and the marshmallows together so they become more sort of pliable and easier to manage. And I literally have not touched these yet at all. I'm just letting the marshmallows melt nice and slowly in the water so that we end up with that. Have you seen like the kids when they buy fluff?
Yeah.
It's like soft spreadable marshmallow, and that's basically what we're trying to do. So just give it a little stir, get the whole thing warming together, and then once we've got that nice sort of texture, we should be able to then build our wagon wheels. Can't believe you don't have wagon wheels in Spain, Carlos.
Yeah, we got marshmallows.
Yeah.
Which we call them, if you translate them, we call them clouds.
Clouds. Well, that makes sense. So just keep stirring that, and then while I'm talking about that, let's have a look at chocolate. Okay, so again, because I use induction, I just put it on a nice low heat, good cast aluminium non-stick pan. You don't have to double boil it, you know, you don't have to put a bowl of chocolate over simmering water and let it melt that way. Just put it on a super low heat, and can you see that, Carlos?
Yeah.
I haven't touched this at all. I've just let it warm really gently. And that's the great thing about induction and good pans, is you can just leave it on a nice low heat and just gently melt it through. So that chocolate's ready. I'm just going to put it to one side, keep it on number 1, and that'll just keep at that sort of melted temperature. And I won't need to worry about that until I'm ready to coat these biscuits completely in chocolate. So let's just give this a stir, keep going until it's fully melted, and it'll go totally liquid, and then we want to just let it firm up a little bit.
Yes.
Okay, so the marshmallows are melted enough for me. There's a few little bits in there that aren't quite melted, but as I go along, they will melt. So all we now need to do is just simply and carefully transfer some of the liquid marshmallow into the center, but don't overfill it. What I would say is you can always add a little bit more if you want to, but just get a bit on there to get started, all right? So just transfer a little bit, and this is going to stick the biscuits together. Don't forget we've got jam in here to go in as well. If you don't want the jam, don't put it in. I love it because I just think it gives a fruitiness, kind of cuts through, but if you just want marshmallows, then you go for it. I think they'd be a hit in your house, these ones, wouldn't they, Carlos?
Yeah, look at them.
Okay, so, and you can see, like, the marshmallows have just sort of spread, but they're not hitting the edges. You don't want them to go all the way to the edge, because when you sandwich on the top, that's when they will do that. So, now let's take our jam. So a little bit of raspberry jam from our friends at Wild and Fruitful, and just plonk it in the centre, like that. Less is more on this. If you overfill it, it'll just be an absolute mess.
Oh, nice.
What you want is to bite into this, get through that dark, bitter chocolate, and then you get the sweetness of the marshmallow, and then you get the fruity hit of the jam. And it's just, for me, it's just such an amazing invention, a wagon wheel. I don't know where it's come from, but it's a great invention. And it reminds me of being a child, and the Bake It Better chapter in our new book is very nostalgic, but sort of trying to deliver these recipes in a slightly more modern way, and obviously making them at home and just making them absolutely delicious. So now just take the biscuit, don't squash it, let the natural weight sandwich it together like so. Okay? So just sit them on. As the marshmallow cools, it will stick all that together, and it will sandwich that jam in the center, and no air will get to it. So the better you do this, the longer they will keep. Right, I'm going to let those sit for about 10 minutes before we then cover them in chocolate. Okay, chocolate is melted, nice and cool, like not too hot. The secret to melting chocolate is slow and low on its heat. So all we now need to do is just drop some chocolate on top. And because we've got this piece of parchment paper underneath, it means that I'll catch any excess chocolate and I'll be able to reuse it so it doesn't go to waste. So you see how that's just sort of dropping over the edges? And we just want it all to go like that. So if I carry this on, it is a labour of love, this. It's not an easy job, it's not a quick biscuit, but oh my goodness, they are worth it. So just push it from the outside, inside out, and it'll just drop down. And it will make the most delicious wagon wheels you have ever had. I promise you, you will love them. Look at that. There's something mesmerising about melting chocolate on a biscuit. I absolutely love it. So just take your time, make sure those biscuits get completely enrobed in that lovely dark chocolate, because the bitterness of the chocolate with the sweetness of everything else going on there, then you hit the jam in the middle, it makes for the most incredible wagon wheel. So I'm going to get the rest of these finished. You need to go and get your ingredients and make these. Thank you very much for watching. If you want the recipe, the book is out now. It's available online. You can get it on our website signed, and you can also get it in all good bookstores. But thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the next episode.